Okay. So our agenda today will be LAC lobbyist activities and tools to support your work. We'll talk about action alerts, relationships between different league levels, and how to handle ballot issues. So the legislative session, the 75th regular session of the General Assembly of the 75th General Assembly begins on January 8th. This coming Wednesday. And the address for the General Assembly website is on that picture. And the leadership, this is the Democratic House leadership. Julie McCluskey, Representative Julie McCluskey is the speaker. It's a good idea if your issue groups begin meeting before the LAC meeting on January 17th. This is the House leadership on the Republican side. I don't remember if Representative Puglias was the minority leader last year or not. I can't remember, but these are all the House leadership on the Republican side. These are the Democratic Senate leadership. The leadership has changed. Senator Coleman is now the Senate president because Senator Berg was term limited, I think. Okay. And this is the Senate leadership on the Republican side, and Senator Lundin is the minority leader. And this is the Joint Budget Committee for this year. That's it. Next. Okay. So plan to participate in LAC meetings. The session starts Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and then our first meeting by Zoom will be on the 17th. So it would be a good idea if each of your issue groups could meet before the 17th, because you'll want to pick out your top 2 current bills. And when the session starts, there will be this tsunami or tidal wave, or however you want to put it, of bills. So you'll want to be ready to go for our first LAC meeting, and you'll have a lot of bills probably to go through, and you'll need to send bill summaries to Andrea for everything that you want to have a vote. You can have more than 2 bills that you're interested in, but we try to keep the LAC meetings to 2 hours. So we ask that you only plan to present 2 bills at that Zoom meeting, but then you can present them for an email vote. And sometimes those email votes are really important because the bills come in really fast. Like last year, that change to the open meetings law for the General Assembly, we couldn't discuss that at a Zoom meeting, so we had to do it by email. And that was a really important bill, unfortunately. So, okay, so you want to track the bills, identify the bills you want to work on based on our positions. We have to have a position before we can look at take a stance on a bill. So you want to prepare your bill summaries through your group consultation. You want to come to consensus through your issue group on the stance you want to take. You follow your bills through Capital Watch, and Andrea will set it up so that your issue area, the bills that fall in your issue area, you'll be alerted by email through Capital Watch. And you can follow the bill status and access the bill information, information about the committee meetings. Everything will be on the General Assembly website. There are sample bill summaries in the advocacy toolkit on the LWVCO website. Capital Watch will only send alerts after Andrea identifies the bill that we're interested in, the bill. And you need, if a measure is referred to the ballot, we need to notify you need to notify LAC of that. If a measure is referred to the ballot, notify Andrea. Write up a bill measure summary. There's templates in the toolkit for that. It's the same process as with bill summaries. The template's a little different, and we'll talk about that later, I think. But you follow the same process. You take it to your issue area team and you discuss it, come to consensus if you want to recommend a stance or no stance.
Andrea.
Great. Thank you, Maud. And thanks, Linda, for all that information. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about some of the navigation on the General Assembly site. So everybody's familiar with the process for finding bills. I know our veteran members are pretty familiar with all of this, but just so we're all starting out with some good baseline information, we want to make sure that people know that not only will you be getting those bill alerts and information through Capital Watch that Linda mentioned. Those will be coming to you based on your issue area and the bills that you all as a team have decided to follow. The General Assembly also is a great primary source for finding legislation and information on the bills process. Our progress through the legislative process. So, oh, sorry, go ahead, Maud. Were you going to jump in?
I was just going to say, I noticed Beth is in the Zoom, and I wondered if she's supposed to be on vacation today.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Yeah. I was back yesterday.
Oh,
we all were.
Oh,
no, that's
okay.
fine.
Okay. Welcome
Appreciate
back. Did you want to say, was there anything you wanted to say to the group?
Happy New Year.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, Andrea. Are you ready for the next slide?
Actually, not quite.
Okay.
I just want to draw attention to, the menu bar at the top there, where you see bills. That's kind of your go-to for finding legislation, either legislation that the specific bill number for, or if you don't have that information, you can also search by subject. And I think that's what we have on the next slide, if you could advance to that one. So we've got a picture here of the topical categories where you can find legislation that's fall under these areas. So when the session kicks off, as Linda mentioned, there's going to be a lot of legislation that gets introduced right out of the gate. So it's really important for all of you to take a look, kind of scan through what's been introduced, so you can begin to identify the bills in your issue area. And then from there, we'll take a deeper look to figure out what we actually want to follow. But one way to do that, in the very early days, you can maybe even kind of look at the full bill list if you want to kind of get an overview of everything that's been introduced. But a more direct way to get at the information that your team is interested in is to search by category. The categories, subject matter categories that the General Assembly uses, don't match up exactly with the way that we categorize topics in our position book, but they're close. So it may be that you have to look in a couple of areas to feel pretty confident that you're picking up all of the legislation in a certain topic area that's of interest to us, but you can kind of see from the drop-down menu how they're arranged by topic. So you can search everything that falls under those categories. And I think with that, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so I've been talking about the issue teams a lot. Those that have participated in LAC know that we do try and work in teams. Those that are new, we hope that the team approach is really helpful to you all feeling supported and having people around you that you can look to for information on, how the LAC identifies bills and how we go through the process of determining what's important to us, enough that we want to actively monitor the legislation or take a dedicated stance on it to actively lobby on a particular bill. So for the issue area teams, it's really a collaborative approach. We want the groups to come together to kind of review the bills that have been introduced in your issue area up to that point. As Linda mentioned, we do want to place a high priority on keeping our meetings to 2 hours. So one of the first things that you'll need to do in determining, what you consider to be really the most important bills in your area is to think about, what are the top 2 that you'd like to present to the LAC. It may be early on that you don't have a top 2. Bills come out at different, a different pace, depending on, kind of what stage of development they're in behind the scenes. So it may be for the first meeting that you don't have that, which is perfectly fine. It may be that you have more than 2, and then we'll have to go to that email voting process that Linda mentioned. But these are all things that, we really want you all to discuss with your team. So when you come to the meeting, you've got those summaries prepared for the ones that you want to discuss actively in the meeting and present to LAC for a vote. Some of the other things that we need you all to do in the context of your teams is to work together to prepare a concise bill summary that can be summarized in a couple of minutes. One of the things that we like to try and do is to think about the timing of our presentations of the bill to LAC in sort of a similar way to the timing that we would be allowed to actually testify on a bill, which is typically 2 to 3 minutes. It won't ever exceed 3 minutes. So learning how to be concise about the high points of the bill and what it does and how it impacts our positions will be, really important things to get at right away. It's important that the team come to an agreement on the stance that's going to be recommended to LAC for the bill. And by that, we mean whether we support, oppose, maybe we just monitor, maybe it's something we feel really strongly about and we want to think about a strongly support or strongly opposed. But that's a conversation that we really want to see happen in the team setting. So you all have a team consensus for coming to LAC to ask for a particular stance on the bill. It's important to choose a team member that will sort of take the lead. It doesn't mean that, that person is solely responsible and the, team approach goes away, but, just for, point of contact and clarity, it's important to have a person that, understands that they'll be the one to present and likely to testify as well, although we know that, schedules can be tricky. And so it may be that you do have to look to other members of your team to kind of tag team the testimony as it comes up for committee hearing. But those are all things that we can get into in discussion as we move through some of the other slides. But just kind of having a team member, appointed to be the one to sort of shepherd the bill through the process. And like I said, also having that team member for being the point for live testimony as well. I mentioned stances. This is just kind of a rundown of, sort of the range of stances that we might take on a bill. If we feel that something really, really strongly either supports and advances our organizational mission and positions, we might want to assign a strongly support. Conversely, if we feel like it's doing the exact opposite and, just really
Well, do you guys hear? Oh,
No.
No,
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay,
we can hear
Um,
you. We can hear Maud and Linda.
yeah, but not Andrea.
Andrea.
Not Andrea.
I
Did
can-
Andrea drop off?
yes,
She-
for a second. Yes. Can you all hear
Oh.
me?
Yeah,
Yep.
we're back.
Yes.
Okay, and Andrea,
Sorry.
Peggy Leach has a question.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Yeah, my question is about monitor. So, do we need to get LAC approval to do that? Or do we just send an email to Andrea and have her add it to Capital Watch for us?
Monitor, that's a great issue, Peggy. I'm glad you brought that up because it's definitely something that we wanted to flag for everybody. Monitor can be a little more nuanced in some ways because there may be bills where we, in a very traditional sense, just want to monitor it. We want to keep an eye on it because it's of interest to us, but it's not something that we feel like we need to take a stance on. We monitor with the idea that might change, or maybe it's just something that we want to keep an eye on as it moves through the process, so we know whether it passes or not. In that case, no, you all as a team can just basically do that internally. We don't need to take an LAC vote on it if it's really just kind of an in the background sort of thing. I would ask that if you want it to appear on your Capital Watch email alerts, that you do let me know about that, because I'll need to enter it into our issue area team bill lists for you to get the notifications on it. So let me know about it, but we don't need a formal LAC vote on that. If we want something to be, we've kind of come to refer to it as more of a formal monitor, where we want the monitor position to be made public and reported to the Secretary of State. That is something that we would want you to bring to LAC and have a formal monitor position established via a vote. Just so LAC is aware of and is endorsing all of the public stances that we take on a bill. There are some reasons that, we might want to make that monitor stance known publicly. It may be that we really do feel like this bill could be headed in a direction where we may eventually establish a position, and we want it to be public that we are actively keeping an eye on it. So I would say that's really the distinction. I guess, sorry, it's kind of a long-winded answer to say, monitor can be more of a behind the scenes thing that doesn't really require an LAC vote. If we want that monitor stance to be made public and recorded with the Secretary of State, then we would ask for an LAC vote. But in either case, it's helpful to let me know, so we can, of course, handle it appropriately, but also so I can get those informal monitors on the bill list so you get the email updates for that.
Okay, good explanation. Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy. Let's see. I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Oh, one thing I don't know if I fully mentioned before my internet kicked me out. With strongly support and strongly oppose, that's a stance that will appear on our Capital Watch bill list that we post on our website. So that information is available to the public. Anyone that wants to access our bill list via our website can see that we've taken a strongly support or opposed stance. It is not a category that is available to us through the Secretary of State. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. It doesn't necessarily affect, if we think something should have a strongly support or oppose, we can do that. Just know that it isn't going to get recorded that way with the Secretary of State because they don't offer it up that way. It's a drop-down menu and we just don't have the option of choosing that. So there's a little bit of an inconsistency there that, just everybody should be aware of. And then with amend, that's a process that I think we've got a slide in here that's going to talk a little bit more about that. But really the main thing that we want to emphasize here is that if the group feels strongly that there's an amendment needed to a bill, we want you to be coordinated in your approach about what you want done in terms of being specific about what an amendment suggestion would look like. And then have consensus amongst your team that, this is going to be something that, you approach the sponsor on to see if there's a willingness to consider an amendment. We do want to be specific when we're proposing an amend because, we want to be thinking kind of about it through the lens of what would need to change about this bill to get us behind it. What would need to happen to the bill to come into alignment with our position so it furthers that position, via the bill. So when you're kind of thinking about, how you think this could be a better bill, that's sort of the approach that we take, and we just want to be specific in what we're asking a sponsor to do. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah. If I'm remembering correctly from past years, are we implying with an amend that if they do in fact change the bill that to the way that we're asking them to do it, then we will change our stance? Because that's an implication, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible, I guess, because, all of this could vary case by case. But I think,
Right.
Really what we're trying to accomplish with an amend is to get a change in the bill that would take us from a place of not really being on board with it to, supporting or thinking that, yeah, this is something that we can get behind. So I 100% agree that it's, kind of an implied thing. And I think, in terms of conversations with the sponsor, that's probably something that would come out as you're talking about, like why we're looking for the amendment and, why we think it's a good idea. Obviously, if they are willing to consider that and, actually incorporate amended language that, would bring it in alignment with our position, it would make sense that we would want to support.
And it would always be with a caveat that if they change it in other areas that we're not too jazzed about, we'll just keep it, or we'll decide on what stance we're going to take at that point.
Yeah, that's the really important thing about amendments in general is that, they can significantly sometimes change, the whole focus and purpose of a bill. Sometimes, I think our veteran members know that you can occasionally see a strike below that basically is a complete rewrite. A lot of times it's things that are not nearly that severe, but we do have to pay attention to amends because it can be a situation that takes us from either, not being on board to supporting, or the opposite can happen where, we were supporting and then something happens where we think, this is really headed in the wrong direction now, and we have to formally change our position on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to, just sort of the workings of the issue group. We wanted to point out some of the guiding principles that, are referred to and, really relied upon for the LWVCO board meetings. We think that these commitments for group engagement are really relevant for LAC too, because we know that not everybody's going to agree, which is great. We want a diversity of perspective and, just people bringing different perspectives to the table. That really improves our advocacy. But of course, we want to disagree respectfully. We want to, make sure that we're listening to each other and, really taking a team approach with the idea that, we accomplish things by consensus. And, the only way to do that is to consider questions, to consider all sides of an issue, make sure that all of the team members have an opportunity to weigh in and be heard. And that's, first and foremost, that every decision we make is grounded in our positions. Okay, so that being said, it is possible that, the issue area team really has a tough time coming to a consensus. People will, everybody's coming to your work as an LAC lobbyist with different perspectives. And, that means people are going to see legislation differently. So sometimes it can be difficult to reach a consensus, and sometimes it may not be possible. I want to pause there because I see that Kathy Smith has a hand up, and Kathy, please jump in.
Sorry, I put up my hand before you started your spiel here, but this is what I was kind of hoping for. Just a discussion about how important the grounding in our positions is versus what our personal views are.
Yes. That's a great point, Kathy. As I mentioned, our guiding principle for all of our lobbying activity is rooted in our positions. It's just critical to, our advocacy efforts across the board. So, while we may be coming at this from different perspectives, which is good because, I think that that's, really informs the deliberation. We do always need to be looking at it through the lens of league positions. So it's just really fundamental that that is our starting point and that we don't lose sight of that throughout. So I think, when you're struggling to reach a consensus in your issue area teams, maybe it won't happen, but it might. Just remember that we always need to be coming back to our positions and thinking about whether a bill is going to forward our goals and our positions or if it's going to hinder it. And I think one of the key things to keep in mind here is that, policy development and progress can be really slow. Again, all our veteran members know that oftentimes persistence is really the name of the game, and things don't happen quickly or, sometimes go as far as we would like. But if an issue or if a bill is making incremental progress towards, an end result that we, that we believe in and supports our positions, then that's something that we can likely get behind. So keep in mind whether something is moving us in the right direction or not, even if it doesn't get quite as far as you'd like to see it go. All right. And then one final thing that I want to mention on this, we did start a process, I think it was just last year, that in cases where, it's just a really tricky issue and consensus isn't possible within the issue area team, if we do want to advocate, we've got to have a clear stance that can be presented to LAC. So, they can vote, and, we need to be speaking with one voice. If we can't get a consensus in the issue area team, in the past, we have asked that both sides of the issue, so to speak, submit a bill summary to Linda, Maud, and myself. And we will kind of come together to, sort of review both sides and, make a decision as to what stance we think comports with our organizational positions. So essentially, we'll serve as the tiebreaker if needed. It's not something that really comes up a whole lot, but we do know that there's, sometimes some really difficult policy deliberations, and teams sometimes get stuck. So we've kind of implemented that as our approach to, having a clear position so we can ensure that we are speaking with one voice. Let's see, I think
Shirley had a hand up.
I was just gonna say, if you have a position different from the league, personally, you just don't speak for the league. Is that the way it is? You speak for yourself rather than for the league. Is that
Right. If there's a bill that says, paint all barns green, and you are adamant that all barns should be painted red, and the league position supports painting barns green, you can testify as an individual that you oppose the bill and you think barns should be painted red, but only as an individual. And we would, and as a league, we use our position that says paint barns green to support the bill.
And you got to be careful about that as a member of the LAC, because you will kind of be known as a member of the LAC.
Right.
But if you're acting for, on behalf of LAC, you have to, if you're speaking for the league, you need to base everything you say in our positions. But as an individual, you are free to take whatever opinion you want.
But Beth is right. If you've been speaking to the legislature a lot with your league hat on, when you show up in the room, it's you've got to be really clear that you are not there as a league member, you're there as an individual. Kathy Wilson.
And I think it's a good practice when you start any testimony that you say, I am so and so and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Colorado. So you're really clear that's what you're doing, as opposed to I'm Kathy Wilson and I'm speaking as a private citizen. So just be clear in the first sentence.
And I'm sorry to have dropped off again. I'm back. I am not sure how much I missed, but I can jump in on the next slide whenever we're ready. I switched to my phone, so hopefully that will eliminate whatever's going on at my home internet.
Yeah, we had a discussion on speaking as an individual versus a league member. So we're ready to go back to this next slide.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry about the technical problems today. I am in the process of trying to figure out a new internet solution, so this does not keep happening. But in the meantime, I'm going to try this from my phone, so hopefully that works. Okay, so getting back to the slide 19, we talked a little bit about voting in between meetings, and we, just to kind of reiterate, as bills start to really pour out, it's highly likely that the issue area teams are going to have more than 2 bills that maybe not every meeting, but at various points through the session, it's likely that you're going to have more than 2 that you want to get an LAC vote on. That's a case where once you've gone beyond that 2, we'll need to look to an email vote. The email votes, in some ways, I know not everybody loves it, but we do really want to encourage participation because it's a vote nonetheless, and having everybody, review the summaries, if not the live presentation, weigh in with any questions, and, just kind of have that deliberation, whether that's in person in the meeting or it's electronic via email, or if need be, we can always arrange for a phone call or some specific follow-up if that's needed. We can try and make whatever needs to happen work, so members feel like they have the information they need to make an informed vote. But having all of you weigh in and vote is just really important for us speaking with one voice and everyone feeling informed about the stances that we've taken, and really just being on the same page. So we just want to kind of put a plug in for how important that email voting process is. The other time that we're going to see this come up is at points in the session where we're really seeing a flurry of activity. Sort of the end of the session is kind of a key time for this, but it may happen at other points too, where things are moving quickly, and it may be that your bill is scheduled for a hearing prior to the next LAC meeting, and so you need a vote established before there's an opportunity to bring it up in the meeting. If the timing is such that it's urgent, that would be another instance where we would want to rely on an email vote. So with email votes, if the team, the point person for the team, Bill, can send me the summary, including the agreed upon stance, I will get that out for an email vote. And I think we can go to the next slide, Maud.
Peggy's got a question.
Oh, sorry, Peggy, go ahead.
Yeah, it's on the email votes. And I'm wondering if we should have a process for discussion when there's some disagreement. A lot of times I'll see that the recommended stance is support, and then I start seeing people opposing, and I have no idea why. And we don't really have a reply all, which I'm not sure I am advocating for. But anyway, some kind of a way of communicating about or discussing a bill if there's some controversy on it.
That is a great point that you bring up, Peggy. That's actually, you're predicting where we're going. That's actually the topic of the information that we've got on slide 20. So we have considered a couple of different approaches over the last few years about how best to handle email votes, because we do know that discussion and deliberation is really important. So we've kind of been brainstorming ways that we can replicate the quality of LAC deliberation that takes place in the meetings, electronic form. And, it's going to be a little bit different. So it's why I raised the idea that, depending on circumstance, we may have to figure out is a call needed or something, but kind of as a default, the way that we would like to handle that issue is that if there are questions or points of disagreement or just points for discussion or consideration, we're requesting that you all you'll have the email with the link to the voting spreadsheet. And it'll be set up the same way that it was last year, where the bill title is a hyperlink that'll take you to the issue team's summary of the bill. And so if you go there, it's going to bring up the document that's got the bill summary. So whatever questions or points that you want to raise for the group to consider, and by group I mean all of LAC, we're asking that people put those at the bottom of the summary, so the issue team can then go back and reply to the questions, and then people can scroll through and essentially see the deliberation and the Q&A that's taken place around the bill. And then if there's follow-up that's needed from there, we can address that case by case, however that might be needed. But that's kind of how we've been brainstorming a way to replicate a quality deliberation process.
And then the issue area team will, just kind of keep an eye on that. And then as the votes come in, we'll let everybody know once we've reached a consensus. But I'm hopeful that will give you all the opportunity to see what everybody else is thinking without clogging your email boxes, because we know not everyone is a fan of the reply all function with the LAC email voting process. Does that answer your question, Peggy?
Yes, that sounds like a good solution.
Okay, great. That we'll give it a try, and if we encounter, any really big hiccups, we can always kind of adjust. But we're hopeful that process will be helpful to us this session. So this slide here, slide 21, is just kind of providing a visual about what the email voting spreadsheet looks like and how you navigate that. Our veteran members will be familiar since we've been using this for a couple of sessions now. Those that are newer, I think it's pretty user friendly once you get in there and see it. But certainly if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out and we can walk you through it if you have any trouble. But you can kind of see how on the left-hand side, we've got, all of the LAC members listed by name. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the bill title in a column that has got a drop-down menu that allows you to select the position that you want to vote for. And you can see here with this particular example, the recommended stance was amend. If you're in agreement with that stance, you can go ahead and record A for amend, as you can see is done here. If you're in disagreement with that and you feel like another approach is needed, you've got the option to enter that as well. And we'll be monitoring that to determine if and when we have a consensus on the vote. Okay, as far as the bill summaries themselves,
This is Jeanette's slide.
Yeah. I was just going to say we've got kind of a little bullet point list of some of the key components, but I do want to turn it over to Jeanette Hillary, who is one of our longtime LAC members and is very familiar with, reading legislation, summarizing bills, has attended many legislative committee hearings to kind of walk us through, why we're asking for the information that we want to see included in the summaries here. And one thing I would love to hear your thoughts on, Jeanette, or if you have any suggestions or tips about things to watch out for in the committee hearings that could be particularly useful to capture in a bill summary that might be useful for our members to know. I'll stop there and turn it over to you to kind of let you walk us through this process.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeanette Hillary. I'm in the Boulder League, and I had looked at this slide a while ago, but it kind of blanked on me for a while. So I was doing my notes for today, and I will tell you, I have the exact same list in the exact same order as this slide. I happen to be a title junkie, so I happen to read titles of every bill that comes out. They're fascinating to read sometimes. That's just an aside. But yes, you do want to know your bill title for this particular session, what the title is. Title is interesting. Sometimes it tells you either a lot or a little or nothing. And then I happen to be, in some cases, with a bill introduction, who the sponsors are. Sometimes there's a legislator who has a nitpick issue in their district with a problem and introduces a bill to try to get to a solution where the problem was only in their particular area. And so I think sometimes, you can read a bill and go, where the heck did this come from? I will reiterate Kathy Smith's and Andrea's position that no in your particular area, know what the league position is and why you should or should not oppose a particular bill. It really is very important. There can be some really good bills, but we don't have positions on those particular areas. Or there could be some really bad bills and we don't have a position. But do be familiar with league positions. I mean, you don't have to memorize it, but at least know where you can go in the program books and look at it. Every bill starts with a bill summary, and you should, know it'll outline for you what's in a particular bill. And any discussion points that may be relevant or not relevant. A 3-page bill may just be a little correction bill or something like that. When you have a big bill that ends up being, in the 29 or 30 pages, it's a significant bill. And you want to find out in your bill summary, how many pages does the bill summary go on before it starts the actual language of the bill? Because it'll specify, which departments are going to be handling a particular bill. It'll handle if there needs to be new rules or regulations, who is in charge of doing those rules or regulations? Is there a commission involved? Are they suggesting a new commission? My example from last year was the Supreme Court had ruled to do away with, in essence, protection of wetland protections, and it was dredging. And a bill was introduced to establish a dredge and fill permit program for the state. Great. It included water quality issues. Great. We have a very strong set of water quality rules within the Department of Public Health and Environment through the Water Quality Control Division and Commission. This bill was all of a sudden suggesting that all those water quality rules and regs for dredge and fill go to the Department of Natural Resources. Whoa, big alert. That meant a whole new commission. How was it going to get funded? How were they going to get appointed? And why, when there are established rules and regulations, did it need to be put over there? There was another bill that got introduced. That was Senate Bill 24-127. Then there was a House Bill 24-1379, which was, in essence, the Department of Public Health and Environment's Water Quality Division's dredge and fill bill. And we are the first state in the nation, by the way, to get legislation to cover this particular area. But look at where all the little titles are in your bill summary, and then really, go into it. And again, identifying, any JEDI impacts in the environmental area. We have a lot of issues where there are sightings for either oil and gas or other pollution areas that can significantly impact the JEDI. And, how is this impacting, future things? Should we be in support of this? Are the regulations going to be involved in it? And then whoever within the teams, find out who's going to be the lead on a particular, bill. And usually people sift their areas out. And, some people have more knowledge. If you're, when Kathy Smith had this humongous housing bill of 230 pages a couple of years ago, she was, different people picked up different areas and then fed her the information. She was the lead on housing, but it affected environmental and water issues. It affected some transportation issues. It affected a bunch of areas that we had specialists in other league areas. So, you can coordinate and say, whoa, this is too big. Most bills are not that onerous. And, but, you know, take on a little bill and work with it. You can read in the bill whether or not there is any fiscal note. And then on your legislative page, you can download or read what the fiscal note is. Anytime you see that they are asking for new FTE, that's full-time equivalents, you know there's going to be a fiscal note. And all I'm going to tell you, because I think we're going to hear it all this legislative session, is there is no money. So requests for new programs are probably not going to go anywhere. So we're going to have more feel-good bills, and that will not impact the budgets as much. So with that, if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to talk with people individually and, you know, look at bills and suggest things.
Thank you, Jeanette. That is really helpful information. Fantastic walkthrough of the components and, you know, kind of thinking through, you know, the why behind a lot of, you know, things that you'll sometimes see in a bill. That background can be really important to our members and, of course, really important to our deliberations on what we do with something. So that's really useful information. And a great reminder, I am sure everyone has you know, kind of been hearing this in, you know, the policy community and obviously in the news reporting and the fiscal briefings that have been happening, is that, you know, there's a budget hole, significant budget hole to be filled. Yeah, I do think it's really, to Jeanette's point, anything with a fiscal note is going to have a hard time getting through. And you know, I think that's just going to be a key theme of the session, that, you know, there's just not enough money to be creating new programs. So sort of an unfortunate reality that I think we're going to be dealing with. All right.
Kate has a question.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Maud. I am especially in the dark about the questions on my phone. Go ahead, Kate.
Not so much a question, just a comment that I've noticed from news reporting and various alternative, you know, independent sources, is that there's going to be a lot of legislative cleanup bills where they're going to tighten up language that for statutes that were enacted in 23 and 24, you know, and we're starting to find the chinks in the legislation as it was written when brought to fruition and practicality. But there's going to be a lot of looking at current legislation that's on the books that's way outdated, and you're going to see a lot of people trying to do cleanups of things that are way racist in origin or what have you. We had one of those bills last year. So, you know, there's going to be feel-good stuff. That doesn't cost money. But just to let you know that there is a lot of cleanup stuff and organizational stuff that might be very beneficial for paying attention to. Thanks.
Thanks, Kate. That's a great point. I appreciate you sharing that information. I mean, it's definitely something for us to be on the lookout for, because sometimes, you know, there's some really significant change that is happening through those cleanup bills. Sometimes they're very technical in nature and, you know, really don't rise to the level of something that strongly impacts our positions. But in other instances, they do. So, you know, that can be a really important you know, category of bills to be looking to. You know, once we've got some implementation experience, you know, unintended consequences, you know, tweaks that need to happen start to really come out. And, you know, I think our issue area teams have been really great about, you know, looking at the implementation and how the bills that we've supported in the past, or in some cases, those that we've opposed that passed anyway, you know, how those have played out. So, you know, as we see those cleanup bills come along that are making some tweaks, there very well may be things that we want to actively weigh in on. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so looking at slide 23, we've got a couple of links to some sample bill summaries that are included in the LAC toolkit. These are actually both live links as well. I'm not sure that we have time to go through them. I'll maybe just I'll just let you know that they're there for right now. So you can access them via the toolkit, or when you have the slide deck, if you happen to want to keep it on hand as a refresher, the bill summary links will be handy here as well. But it just kind of takes you through those components that Jeanette walked us through, and especially for our newer members, gives you a little bit of a model to go off of. But as with everything for our newer members, or even our not so new members, if questions come up, or if there's any issue that you're kind of stumbling over, please reach out to me, Maud, and Linda. We are always happy to help. And I think with that, we can go to the next slide. Here I just want to talk a little bit about monitoring the bills as they go through the process. It's really important that we are following legislation that we've got a specific stance on, that we are wanting to actively lobby on, that we're following it all the way through. I think it's our attention, sort of naturally goes to that first committee hearing in the Chamber of Origin. But it's important to keep in mind that, if the bill passes its Chamber of Origin and crosses over to the other chamber, it's going to go through the whole process again. So we've got a couple of opportunities to provide testimony and, really advocate for either the passage or not bills that we have a stance on. So we want to take advantage of that lobbying opportunity in the committee hearings for both the House side and the Senate side. You can participate remotely. I know some of you like to go down to the Capitol and be there in person, which is fantastic. I think there's a lot of benefits to doing that. So certainly we encourage it where it's feasible. We know for others, it's not as feasible, and some of you are not in the Denver metro area. Remote participation is what makes sense. And that is, perfectly, that's a perfectly good way of participating. The ability to monitor the committee hearings remotely and to testify remotely is something that's really been expanded over the last few years. So, those opportunities are available, fortunately, to people anywhere in the state. So we've
May
got
I interrupt there, Andrea, real quick?
Oh, please go ahead, Beth.
Thank you. I'm sorry. LWVCO does have an office about a block from the Capitol. Any LAC member is welcome to use that office as a place to hang out and wait. Use the Wi-Fi. There's always coffee and kombucha, and just come on over anytime. Also, if anyone wants to come down for opening day to hear the opening, is it a bell or a gavel? I can't remember.
Gavel.
Thank you. I guess it's the stock market that uses the bell. Anyway, if anyone wants to come down and meet at the office, we'll have donuts and coffee. Just let me know so that if nobody comes, we're not stuck with dozens of donuts, just because nothing's good about that. Also, if anybody in the metro area hasn't ever done a tour of the Capitol, we're very happy to arrange that upon request. It's a beautiful building, and it's the people's house. So just let us know. We haven't done that in a while. And just while I have your attention, I'd like to reiterate that the legislative conference for 2025 is the 25th of this month. We're confirming up speakers now. But Andrea will be talking about our efforts to write and pass a Colorado Voting Rights Act in coalition, in a large coalition. We have John Caldera of the Independence Institute coming to talk about our joint efforts that are now being called Team Transparency to repeal Senate Bill 24-157, as well as battle any extreme changes to CORA processes. Of course, we'll have a full legislative preview. We are looking to have Bob Marshall and Lindsay Doherty come talk about vacancy committees. Sorry, let me see what else.
It's a great agenda.
We're hoping Governor Polis will come to talk about Governor Saving Democracy and his Disagree Better movement campaign. I'm trying to get the new director of advocacy for LWVUS, Marcia Johnson, to come to talk about national efforts to combat any anti-democratic efforts and actions. So there will be a big old ad for it, if that's the right word, in today's newsletter, along with a registration link. Thank you very much. Hope to see you there. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, thank you for that information, Beth. Yeah, I can't put in enough of a plug for the office. It is lovely, and a short walk to the Capitol. So that's a great opportunity for those that might want to come down in person, even if you don't normally do that. You know, it can be a great experience, I think, to have. So, you know, definitely take advantage of that if that's something that's possible for you. And yeah, we're really excited about some of the things that are coming up. The legislative conference has got a great agenda. I think I saw a comment where Celeste had mentioned the testimony that we delivered earlier in the week, you know, regarding Senate Bill 157 and our concerns around the lack of transparency that that legislation is resulting in. You know, along those lines, when we were at that hearing earlier today, and this sort of relates to the you know, monitoring of committee hearings and remote participation. There's definitely some interest that was raised during the hearing on 157 on Monday about you know, really kind of pushing the General Assembly to implement video live streaming of the hearing. So not only would people be able to access the committee hearing audio, but that you could also do video as well. And we have indicated to you know, some of the individuals there that have brought that up, that is definitely something that LWVCO has been interested in as well. And you know, we would like to be part of efforts to push that forward. It was an individual from the Colorado Channel board of directors that raised the issue with the Legislative Council Committee. So hopefully we'll see some movement there as well, which would make monitoring the committee hearings, you know, even more accessible to people. So the technology is there. It would be great if, you know, we could be part of the push to make that happen. Anyway, I think that's all I really have to say on this slide. Just wanting to make sure people are aware of the opportunities to monitor remotely, and that you know, you are being consistent in following a bill through the entire process, from introduction to hopefully passage on the legislation that we support. You know, so we can stay engaged in the lobbying effort from start to finish. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it back to Maude.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Beth, acronym decoding, Cora, is the Colorado Open Records Act. For those of us, many of us who are acronym challenged, I'm going to try to go through these next slides at a slightly brisker pace so that we can get everyone out by 11. But Linda, I think Linda and Beth are probably the only ones who can monitor the chat. So Linda, if you see a question in the chat, please let us know. Best way to ask questions, as we said, is to raise your Zoom hand. We know that a number of our members prefer doing written testimony, and so we've been, when we corner a legislator, we've been asking, do you all actually have time to read that written testimony or to read your emails? And most of them say no. They are so swamped that they don't get to reading written testimony. They aren't able to read their emails themselves. So we are strongly recommending live testimony in person or by video to all of our issue area groups. Please do send a copy of your testimony to Andrea with a note on how it was delivered in person, by video, or written. If one of your issue group members testifies, and in the unlikely event that a legislator has a question, someone in the issue area group is likely to be able to answer the question. Please practice your testimony several times so the delivery is smooth. Time it. In theory, we have 3 minutes, but committee chairs can cut this to 2 minutes, and they often do. So I always try to make sure that I can say everything in 2 minutes or less. If you do have a relevant personal experience, your story can help illuminate the issue. For amendments, the bill sponsor may come through with an amendment that is sufficient, that is large enough that it would change our stance on a bill. But during the committee meeting, remember, we can't change our stance on the fly. That's an LAC decision, which requires an LAC vote. Plus, generally, the amendments are offered after we've all done our testimony. If you do get advance notice of a major amendment that will likely change our stance on a bill, you can hold off testifying. You can just testify on what the league position is without giving a stance, or you can say, here's our stance now, but it may change depending on amendments. If you plan to suggest an amendment, if LAC has voted to amend, please talk to the bill sponsors before the hearing. We don't want to blindside them. Remember, if we take an amend stance, it implies that if the amendment is adopted, that we will then, and nothing else egregious is done to the bill, that we will then support the bill. Even before the issue group formally decides to recommend amending and before LAC votes, we can reach out to the bill sponsor to see if the bill sponsor is open to amending the bill. If they say, no, hell no, we may just oppose the bill, or we may take an amendment anyways, but it's good to know that and have that discussion with the sponsor. We can have that discussion, a soft question of, are you open to amending in this way, with the bill sponsor? And bring something about how you want the bill amended. Wording would be great, to the LAC. Have it in your bill summary, please. So notify Linda, Andrea, and me of the amendment that your issue group would like to amend. After LAC approval, again, contact the bill sponsor about how you'd like to amend it. And the best place to amend a bill, of course, is before it's even introduced in stakeholder meetings. And if you are in a stakeholder meeting after the bill has been introduced, that's a good place to talk about potential amendments. Testifying P's and Q's etiquette. This is a formal process and environment. We wear at least business casual, no t-shirts, not even your favorite Grateful Dead shirt. Legislators may be testifying in different committees, so they may be coming and going during the meeting. It's not throwing shade on people there. They just are trying to cover all their bases at one time. Please also don't repeat arguments that other people have made. I've sat in a hearing with a whole page of testimony, crossing things out, point after point that other people make before I get up. And trust me, legislators appreciate if you're briefer than 2 minutes, that's a minute they get back of their life. And everyone else in the room. Every once in a while, we will want an extra push from all LAC members, everybody on the State League email list on a bill, and we'll want to ask for an action alert. If we already have a stance on a bill, the issue area group can draft an action alert and send it to Linda, Andrea, and me. Be sure to note who should get the action alert, all House members, if the bill's on the floor, or members of a particular House or Senate committee, the governor, if it's a signing or vetoing issue. Again, there's a folder in the toolkit with a template and some samples. Please go dig into that toolkit. It's got a ton of great stuff in it. This is the legislative action report page. I think most of you are pretty familiar with it. Hover over take action on the State League page, and then click on the drop-down menu, click on legislative action report. Please send your local league members to this page to find information on the legislative action report. You can see also that pink arrow pointing at the master bill tracker. That's our news without the weather page that has report that has all the bills that we take, support, oppose, or amend stances on, and the current status on the bill. It's a great overview, a great lookup. A lot more info is available on the Capitol Watch reports on those individual issue area pages. So this is the top of the full Capitol Watch page for a particular bill. This is part of the issue area report. Please always read the most recent full text of the bill and any amendments as it goes through the process. It's also quite helpful to read the fiscal note, even if you aren't a fiscal junkie, because the summary in the fiscal note can be clearer, is sometimes clearer than what the legal staff write as the bill summary. It's interesting, and there's additional detail on the bill and the bill's effect. And it's also interesting to see if the bill has bipartisan sponsorship in that sponsor list. And if you click on the lobbyist link in the Capitol Watch report, you'll see which organizations support or oppose or are monitoring. And it can be helpful to see, click on the votes and see which legislators voted for and against the bill in committee and on the floor.
Oh,
Kathy Wilson. You're on mute.
I know. I was getting rid of it. Just as a reminder to some of the newer members, the fiscal note might not be there at the very beginning. So I always continue to check to see when the fiscal note appears. and then read it at that point. But it really is, sometimes it really clarifies things nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, good point, Kathy. Thank you. I have worked on fiscal notes from the executive branch agency side in a different state. And it takes work to put those together. It can take some time. So the other place for great information is the General Assembly bill page, which lots of useful information under the buttons and tabs and links, including the bill history, what steps the bill's already gone through, links to the bill text as it goes along, and amendments. The legislative staff's bill summary is great, but please read the whole bill. There can be some real surprises in the full draft. If there's a fiscal note, especially this session, sponsors may work to reduce a bill's fiscal note, so watch for updates to the fiscal note as well as amendments to the bill text. And now it is Linda's turn, unless anybody has questions. Linda, take it away.
Okay, so these are the LWVCO legislative action pages. You can find it's under take action, and the drop down we have where the league stands, and then the legislative action report. These are really good pages with a lot of information, and it would be great if you would share them with your local league so they know our local leagues know what we're doing on the Legislative Action Committee. The next slide has where the league stands. That's the first drop down underneath the take action, and where the league stands does not look like that anymore, but it has links to positions for action and advocacy, our LWVCO positions, and national impact on issues. And I think they're all updated by now. What we have on our website.
Yes, the 2024 to 2026 national book and the 2024-25 state book are both linked from the Where the League Stands page. They're both updated.
Okay. And the next page shows you just an enlargement of that little blue box on the corner of the next drop down is actually the legislative action drop down, and it has this blue box that you're seeing here, but it's in the upper left corner. And you can click on any one of these issue areas, and it will take you to Colorado Capitol Watch, and it'll show all the bills in that issue area that we have listed as we are taking a stance or following or monitoring. They're not up to date now. I tried it yesterday. They're not up to date. And my issue area is not in this blue box, but that's an old page too, so. Okay, the next thing is how we relate with the national, how state relates with the National League. So if LWVUS issues a call to action to interact with our national government representatives on behalf of league as a league member. You can always interact as an individual, but if you're going to speak for league, it's got to be at the request of LWVUS by call to action, or you can ask for permission from LWVUS. The way and you need to coordinate with our state league. So the way I have done it before is there is a form. You go to this federal action request form, fill out the form, before you send it off, I would send the form, I'd copy it and send it to Beth and just say, this is what we wanted to do, and does this look okay to you? And then she'll tell you, and then you can zip it off to US. But that way you're letting everybody know what you're doing and coordinating with the state when you request federal action. Or make a request to act federally, however you want to put it. Okay, so taking a stand on a ballot issue. So there'll probably be fewer ballot measures in this year because we're limited to Tabor. We don't ask for amendments on ballot issues. But LAC is responsible for discussing the ballot initiatives after they have been approved to the title board to collect signatures. So you take it to your issue group. With your issue group, you discuss it and write a ballot issue summary and send it to Andrea. There are samples in the toolkit. And if the issue group recommends a stance, Andrea will send it to LAC for an email vote. And whether we take that stance or not is determined by a LAC consensus. Let's see, the recommendation is this: it's support, oppose, no position, or neutral on those ballot issues. Okay, let's see. Where's my notes? Okay, this is a sample. What's in a ballot issue summary? The ballot issue summaries are more formal than just a bill summary. It has our stance and then a summary of the ballot measure, a link to the fiscal note. We give background. We make sure that we have our lead position that supports our stance and the rationale for the stance. So it's important to remember that the measures can go on the ballot in two ways. They can be referred measures or they can be initiatives that go through the signature process. But the ballot issue summary is important because we use that on it's posted on our LAC web page. It will be posted on voter service page. We use it in our ballot issue presentations. So the text needs to be really clear to the voter. That's what we're looking for here. It's not just for us in the league. We're making an argument to a voter. And then I think, let's see, this is the Secretary of State webpage where you can find the details on the ballot issue initiatives. And I think there's also, you can kind of tell what maybe it's kind of a hint what the legislature will refer, because if you follow resolutions, what the resolutions are during this session, but Capitol Watch doesn't follow those, so you just have to go to the General Assembly website and follow them. Okay.
Linda, good point. Yes, please look at not only bills, but resolutions, because we really need to track anything that's going to go on the ballot. And as Linda said, usually when something's going to go on the ballot, it's done through a resolution. If you spot one, even if your issue group doesn't want to pursue it actively during session, please let us know, and please do a ballot issue summary and send it to Andrea.
Okay. And do you have any questions? Okay, so LAC meetings will be every other Friday through the legislative session from 9 to 11. The meetings will be on Friday, January 17th, with a possible overflow meeting on the 24th, but then they're every other week. And the legislative session begins January 8th. Check your topics for the bills that are introduced. Try to have an issue, your issue area team meeting before the 17th. There will be a ton of bills introduced right around January 8th, and be sure when you're looking for bills and discussing the bills, they need to be grounded in our positions. That's how we take our stance.
And just one clarification, if I can interrupt. Whether or not we meet Friday, January 24th, our next LAC meeting is January 31st, and then 2 weeks after the 31st and on through session. So whether or not we meet the 24th does not change our basic every other week, does not change the rest of the schedule. And the schedule, I think, is in the LAC members workbook.
Right. And Mary Peckham wants to know, are LAC meetings open to the general LAC LWV members? No.
No, this is an internal discussion. If they want to be an LAC member, they ping us and we'll talk.
Okay, and these are our contacts. They're in the LAC, I think they're on that worksheet with all the LAC members on one of the tabs or at the bottom or something. I have a new email address. So you could make note of that and make note of all of them if you want. And we're always here to talk. Oh, and that's not my cell phone number, that's my landline. I'll put my cell phone number is in the LAC toolkit, and I'll put it in here. And that's all, I think.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody who has come. Are there any other questions or comments? We've got quite the session coming up, so buckle up, and it's going to be a fun ride. Amy.
Yes, I put a reminder in the chat to register now on the League of Women Voters website for Justin Noble's discussion of his Petroleum 238, February 19th from 7 to 8:30.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. And also a plug for people who have not been able to yet to please register as a lobbyist. All LAC members to register as a lobbyist. Kathy Wilson.
I was just thinking of, the last couple of years when I have looked at bills, and just for the new members, I found it helpful to look up the bills that they're adding information to, and read that as background so you understand what they're getting at a little bit better. And it's easy to just copy and paste the identifiers for the previous bills and put them in Google and do a Google search. It comes up right away. So it's not like you're, looking all over Kingdom Come to find that background information.
The underlying statute?
Yes,
the amended. Yeah. Right.
Because that first year I didn't do that, and I didn't quite know what was happening as well, and I've learned that. One other little point. I know with our local league, at the very beginning of the session, on the take action, one of the take action pages where it has the blue column on the left with all of the different areas that we've taken stances on. At the beginning of the session, that's not populated because we haven't taken stances on all of those issue areas. So if you have, you know, local members saying, hey, I don't see something in justice, why not? You know, that's why we just haven't taken a stance.
And I was thinking there's one more thing that might be useful to people looking at bills that helped me a lot on Capitol Watch. You can see all the lobbyists who
Yeah.
are supporting or opposing a bill, and I think that gives you a lot of good information.
Yeah. And I have occasionally, when I was puzzled by a bill, I've occasionally reached out to some of the people supporting or opposing and saying, what are you thinking on this?
Yeah.
So, Amy, your hand is up. Are you have, is it residual hand or do you
Yeah,
have another?
no, I did raise it again. You can
Okay.
also find positions for different bills on the Secretary of State's office website.
Right, you can find organization stances on bills on the Secretary of State site. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions or any comments from Andrea or Beth? Okay. Thank you all for sharing your Friday morning. We will see you all in 2 weeks. In the meantime, get together, please, with your issue area committees and groups as bills start getting introduced, and watch out for bills and send any of the three of us questions as you have them. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And thank you for everyone who had good questions and comments too.
Hey, Maud,
Yeah.
can the Justice, Jedi, and immigration people use this link, or do you want us to sign off and use a different one?
I think this that's a Beth question. I think this is blocked out until 11 for this meeting. But I don't know if there's something else using this channel on this room at 11.
Okay.
I can look.
Okay, thanks.
Um,
Don't see anything else on the calendar today, but I don't know if maybe Beth has more insight into that.
I mean, we have another link we can use if you want, but you know.
I think it's fine, and just be ready to email out a new link if someone wanders in and takes it. So
It looks to me like you guys are probably good to go.
yeah.
Can you stop your screen sharing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, okay. And Mary, if you are, oh, she just left. Okay. She was interested.
It looks like, wait a minute, what am I doing?
I'm not sure you've got many of your
Yeah, it
Jedi
looks like
people
we're
on there.
not on here, so it looks like everybody signed off. So I guess we'll use our other link that I sent out.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks a lot,
Sorry.
Mon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Linda.
everybody.
But no, I'll get back with you about the NAL joint meeting.
Okay, I have a couple of ideas, might help, you may decide, but we'll talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I put on the Wednesday agenda to ask about ACLU and Aurora PD Police Department.
Okay.
So thank you for all that you're doing, Kathy.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Take
you.
care. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.